Ich habe auch. Ah. Okay.
Okay. Then please come to lie on your front side, on your belly. And stand both hands, your right hand next to your, or close to your right shoulder, and your left hand close to your left shoulder somewhere. Yeah, the elbows pointing to the ceiling, and choose a side for your head. So turn your head to a side. And feel the pressure on your hands. So find a way to stand the hands with the minimal effort. Okay. Yes, somewhere. Let's take a first approximation and then let go of your legs. Let your legs fall apart. Fall. Not in a literal sense. Just all right. So you're lying on your front side with your hands standing and the head turned to the right. So your right hand is on your right side and your left hand is on your left side. And then bring your attention to your pelvis and start to turn or roll your pelvis to the left, the side where your left hand is standing. So you roll your pelvis, yes, just a little bit, and then let go again, and then roll it again, and then let go again. And notice how you do this. What is your technique? What is your way of making the pelvis roll? So this is a movement initiated from your pelvis somehow. Maybe it is. But what about your right hand? So maybe when you push, maybe you already noticed this. So what else? If I don't speak too much, so you roll the pelvis and then you don't roll the pelvis. And every time you have a opportunity to notice how you roll the pelvis. Exactly. And you can also roll the pelvis to the right. And what is the difference? So your legs, they are just like hanging down. Or maybe the legs can help to turn. And then take a short rest. Just give your hands and wrists a rest. Exactly. So turn the head to the other side. So now your head is turned to the left. Stand your hands again. And this time, start with rolling the pelvis to your right. So slowly, you might find an internal image of this movement where you feel or see yourself turning the pelvis is rolling, and how the chest is following and how your legs are following. And also here, if you roll the pelvis to the right, or if you roll the pelvis to the left, also try this to both sides and see which side the pelvis seems to roll easier. So you play, of course, you discover you can make the movements a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, like very miniature, just the beginning of the movement or the movement as far as it rolls, because we have there a couple of constraints. So you will run into obstacles if you want to make the movement bigger, but maybe you can just try the very beginning, in a very relaxed fashion. So you're rolling the pelvis to the right with the head turned to the left. So turn the head to the right and keep rolling the pelvis in the same direction and see if the head position maybe has a role to play. And then rest your hands again. Now stand your hands again. And start with the head turned to the right. Yes, your first choice. And lift your head. Lift your head a bit. Lift away from the floor towards the ceiling. Where to lift the head? Lift the head to look over your right shoulder. So it's not a side bending. You don't look to the, you don't make a curve, but you lift it up more or less straight, not too strict. The instruction, just more or less a little bit straight. You lift the head and lower it a bit as a first approximation. And then every time see if you can find a way, a quality of movement to lift the head a little bit higher. So the one thing we can play with is the quality, but also what are the ingredients of lifting the head. What role do your hands, your arms play in lifting the head? What role does your pelvis play? So also maybe roll the pelvis a little bit to the left while you lift the head. And maybe you, yes, maybe you want to turn the right leg. Maybe you want to even bend the right leg a little bit in order to be able to push forwards, push with your hands against the floor or not. What are the ingredients for this movement? The variables, where can you, which knobs can you turn? How does the pelvis connect? How does the chest connect to the pelvis and the neck and the head and the legs and the feet? How could you ever see? So if I would not be looking, how would you do it to look at your feet? Which, if you want to check the color of your socks, you would go underneath, huh? Okay, now I'm looking again. I want you to look over your right shoulder. Yes, see? Okay, then take a short rest. And then bring your hands in the standing position again, next, yes, somewhere. So also here, where do you have the pressure on your hands, on your wrists, more on your thumb, more on the outside? Where do you turn your fingers? What is a good place for your hands to push, to support your shoulder girdle? And then start to lift your head. Your head is turned to the left and you start this time, yes. And then you start to lift the head what is this movement lifting of the head? Where do you lean against when you lift the head? Because then the head suddenly is not on the mat, not on the floor again. So the weight of the head is slipping, falling inside the chest. So the chest is pressing, or maybe your pelvis. How about pressing the pelvis against the floor when you lift the head? Or how about lifting your pelvis and turning your pelvis when you lift the head? Let's add a few more movements to explore this question. So take a short rest. Have your head turned to the right? That's okay. Okay, and then stand your hands again. And then bend both knees so that your feet are towards the ceiling. Yes. So when you bend the knees, so maybe extend them again and then bend them again, and you see there's this bending has like a relationship with the pelvis. Yeah, let go of the leg, let them go completely. Extend your legs again and just let them rest. Let them fall. Yes, okay. And then bend them again and see how your sit bones lift away from the floor. Yes, so that the pelvis gets some tension when you bend the knees. It's actually an arch in your back. And then let the feet sink to the left, to your left side. So the feet, the knees keep, yes, just a little bit over there and then back again. So this is the movement initiated from the feet. But roll your pelvis to the left, and with the pelvis, let the feet move. Yes. So let's stay with the pelvis. So you roll the pelvis, and because you roll the pelvis, the feet tilt to the left. And what you might have already observed yourself is when you roll the pelvis, your right knee comes a little bit closer towards your chest. So everything can move. And the rolling of your pelvis, the center of your body, the center of the movement, also is turning your chest in between your shoulder blade, both shoulder blades. Then turn your pelvis to the right and see how that works with your knees bent. You change the head over to the left to look to the left. Okay, so that must be easier. It's good to make life easy. Yes, and if you look to the left and roll the pelvis to the left, then suddenly you see, oh, there is a connection to this pelvis from the neck, and the neck downwards to the pelvis and the pelvis upwards. And turn your head whenever you like. Or whenever you feel appropriate. Interesting choice to have the head in the middle. But then it's never fully supporting and never fully obstructing. So choose sides. Yes, turn the head to the left or to the right. Mm. Mm-hmm. All right, and then I think it's time for a little rest. And as soon as you feel like moving again, stand your hands, but take your time. So you're standing your hand next to your pelvis. That's an interesting choice. And the question would be, where does this lead to? So you can also support the rolling of your pelvis with your hands next to the pelvis. Isn't that interesting? But let's continue with this generic Feldenkrais lesson, a set sequence that does not accommodate client moves, but goes through a sequence that's suitable for a large group where everyone would have to follow the same path and make similar discoveries. So exactly, stand your hands next to your shoulders. So this has changed. And then again, bend your knees. And so your head is turned to the left. So start to lift your head to look over your left shoulder. And at the same time, of course, roll your pelvis to the right. Yes, and see how the mechanics are different, how the movement is different, how your experience is different, just because the knees are bent, as opposed to the knees straight, as we already did. See if you can somehow straighten your elbows. So push, help find a place to push, to lift the head first, roll the pelvis, make way. So you can straighten the elbows to push up and see if you can somehow follow. Yes. So the knees, how far should the knees be apart? Should they be together or should they be apart? I leave that up to you. Also, should the legs slide? So your head is turned to the right, you're rolling the pelvis to the left. Should your right knee slide over your left leg towards your left foot? So that would change the movement if you think of your knee instead of your pelvis. Yes, so there's a moment where it's easy to lift off the knee from the floor, which again is not part of this generic sequence, but it's an interesting little exploration, like a look into different directions, into adjacent lessons. And yes, so return to the rolling of the pelvis, and also compare the two sides. So roll to one side and then roll to the other side. And just have your legs casually apart. So don't hold them together. So you start to see your feet again. Oh, yeah. Let's try this last variation to have your head turned to the right and roll your pelvis to the right and lift your head. So somehow the wrong direction for your head. Yes, it's a very like a tight situation. Or turn your head to the left and roll your pelvis to the left and lift your head to try to look over your left shoulder. Also here we run into this, we run out of space. It's more like a compression. Ah. Okay, and then turn over onto your back and have a rest on your back. And just have your legs casually falling down and your arms falling to the side. And feel how you're resting. What can we feel when we rest? So we have a breathing, and you can feel your chest expanding when air enters your chest. Yes, and maybe you can feel the lower ribs, the 11 and 12, the last ribs next to your pelvis, pressing again or moving when you breathe in, and moving when the air falls out again. The air falls in or is sucked in and pushed out, or it just falls inside and falls outside. And feel how far, yes, how far your legs are apart, the right leg, the distance to the midline, the left leg. And maybe the most interesting apart from the breathing is if you perceive if your pelvis is turned to either side, how you perceive your pelvis now after these movements, or if it's level or tilted or side bend, or if you just feel your pelvis, how it's there in the middle of you somewhere, lower middle. Then stand both feet. Yes, so the knees are bent, pointing towards the ceiling. bring your hands behind your head, interlace your hands, rest your head in your hands, lower the head, just point the elbows towards the ceiling. So yes, have your head resting as a passenger in your head, in your hands, and not on your neck. Yes, okay. And then lift your head and lift your knees. So bring your elbows and your knees towards each other a little bit. Yes, not too sternly, just a little bit, more or less, or a little bit, roll a little bit more to the left or to the right, just like a little bit folding up. Yes, just what's comfortable. Okay, and then extend yourself, and one last time, roll over onto your front side. Come to lie on the front side, again on the belly. With your hands standing. Hey. And the legs just resting, extended. Okay, so this was our first position. Just compare how it is now to the beginning, and also roll your pelvis a little bit to the left, where you left the side of your left hand, and see how this is now, how aware you are, how it has changed, if anything has changed. Or you could try any other movement from the lesson to see how it is after this little break in lying on your back. So, but this is the most interesting, the first movement, just a little roll of the pelvis. This very small, very gentle. Don't try to push anything, achieve anything, just this way of feeling ourselves, sensing. All right, and then please, we finished this lesson, so please roll over aside and come up to stand, and for a moment, just stand. Yes, and feel feel how it is to stand now after such a lesson. And also turn your head to one side and the other. Or maybe I should say turn your pelvis and let your head follow, and see how you look over one shoulder and the other. All right, thank you very much. And see you in the next video.